The grand hall of the Galactic Council shimmered under the soft glow of countless stars projected onto its domed ceiling. Representatives from dozens of species sat in tiered rows, their forms as varied as the planets they hailed from. Some were sleek and insectoid, others hulking and reptilian, while a few floated silently in transparent containment fields. At the center stood Dr. Ilara Voss, her human frame dwarfed by the sheer scale of the chamber. Her sharp features betrayed little emotion, though her clenched fists spoke volumes about the tension coursing through her veins. For decades, humanity had fought to earn its place among these elder civilizations. When Earth first joined the Galactic Council 2 centuries ago, it was seen as an ambitious upstart, a young species barely out of its cradle of stars. But humans were tenacious, driven by curiosity and an unrelenting desire to prove themselves. They brought innovation to the table, breakthroughs in quantum energy, terraforming technologies, and medical advancements that saved billions across the galaxy. Yet despite these contributions, humanity remained on the fringes of power, perpetually overshadowed by older, more established factions. Today, however, would be different, or so Ilara had hoped. She straightened her posture, adjusting the silver insignia pinned to her chest that marked her as Earth's lead diplomat. Before her loomed the towering days of the Council Elders, their expressions unreadable behind ornate masks carved from materials unknown to human science. Behind them hovered the holographic sigils of each member species, glowing faintly against the darkness of space visible through the massive observation windows. Dr. Voss intoned the Zorathian ambassador, his voice resonating like distant thunder. His elongated head tilted slightly, twin sets of eyes glinting with disdain. You have requested this session to present your case regarding what you call quantum liberation. Pray tell, why should we indulge such reckless experimentation? Ilara swallowed hard but refused to flinch. Ambassador Trenvac, I assure you, our research into quantum energy is not reckless. It's revolutionary. Humanity has developed methods to harness zero-point energy without destabilizing local spacetime. This could provide sustainable power sources for entire star systems, including those facing resource shortages. A murmur rippled through the assembly. Several ambassadors exchanged skeptical glances, while others leaned forward with interest. A Salithar delegation, a collective consciousness housed within a single crystalline entity, pulsed faintly, signaling disapproval. This proposal reeks of hubris, interjected the Salithar representative, its voice layered with harmonics that echoed eerily. Your kind has always sought shortcuts to greatness, bypassing millennia of careful evolution. What makes you think you can tamper with forces beyond comprehension? Ilara took a step forward, her tone firm but measured. We're not seeking shortcuts, we're offering solutions. The galaxy faces unprecedented challenges: climate collapse, overpopulation, and dwindling resources. If we don't innovate, we risk losing everything. Isn't that why the Council exists? To foster cooperation and progress. Her words hung in the air, unanswered. For a moment, she allowed herself to hope that reason might prevail. Then Ambassador Kel Arden rose from his seat, his presence commanding silence. Unlike most Zorathians, Kel lacked the ceremonial robes typically worn by his people. Instead, he wore a sleek exosuit adorned with intricate patterns that shifted like liquid metal. His reputation preceded him. He was known as both a brilliant scientist and a radical dissident within his own ranks. Dr. Voss, Kel began, his voice smooth yet laced with venom. Your optimism is admirable, but misplaced. Your experiments violate sacred treaties designed to protect the integrity of the cosmos. You claim to seek progress, yet your actions threaten the very fabric of reality. Gasps erupted throughout the chamber. Ilara felt a chill run down her spine. Sacred treaties? She hadn't anticipated this accusation. With all due respect, Ambassador Arden, no such treaties were disclosed during our initial applications. We've operated within the bounds of Council law. Enough, boomed the voice of the High Arbiter, a towering figure draped in flowing robes of iridescent fabric. The room fell silent as every eye turned toward the dais. This council will hear no more excuses. Humanity's actions speak louder than words. By tampering with quantum fields, you have endangered countless lives and destabilized entire sectors of the galaxy. Ilara's heart sank. She glanced at the holographic display floating beside her, which now showed damning evidence compiled by the Zorathians. Reports of minor rifts appearing near experimental sites, disruptions in subspace communications, and even rumors of colonies abandoned due to inexplicable phenomena. While none of these incidents could be definitively linked to human activity, the optics were damning. A vote will now be taken, announced the High Arbiter, all in favor of imposing sanctions on Earth until further notice. One by one, the cycles lit up, casting votes against humanity. Ilara watched in stunned silence as the tally mounted. Even species that had once been allies abstained or sided with the majority. Only a handful of smaller delegations, the Quarren, the Nixeri, and a few others, voted in support of Earth. It wasn't nearly enough. When the final count was tallied, the verdict was clear. Humanity was guilty, and the punishment severe. Trade embargoes, restricted access to hyperspace lanes, and mandatory cessation of all quantum research. The message was unmistakable. Earth was no longer welcome at the galactic table. Ilara returned to her seat, her mind racing. As the session adjourned, murmurs filled the chamber, some sympathetic, others triumphant. She caught fleeting glimpses of pity in the eyes of certain ambassadors, but also smug satisfaction from others, particularly Cal Arden, who lingered just long enough to meet her gaze before departing. Back aboard the human flagship Eos, Ilara stared out at the swirling nebula beyond the viewport. Captain Rinsoldis approached quietly, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You did everything you could, Ilara. Sometimes doing the right thing isn't enough. Ilara shook her head, her voice barely above a whisper. No, Rin. Doing the right thing means standing up when everyone else turns away. And maybe it's time we stop begging for scraps from a table that doesn't want us. Rin raised an eyebrow. What are you suggesting? Ilara turned to face her, determination blazing in her eyes. If the council won't listen, then perhaps it's time we find our own path. Let them deal with their stagnation and fear. Humanity doesn't need their approval to thrive. Word of Ilara's resolve spread quickly, igniting debates back on Earth and among the scattered colonies. Some argued that leaving the council would isolate them, cutting off vital resources and alliances. Others saw it as an opportunity, a chance to forge a new destiny free from the constraints of outdated hierarchies. In the end, the decision was unanimous. Humanity would withdraw from the Galactic Council. As the last human delegation departed the council chambers, Ilara paused at the threshold, looking back at the empty seats where ambassadors once sat. A strange sensation washed over her, a mix of defiance and foreboding. The galaxy felt different now, as if the act of walking away had set something irreversible into motion. Little did she know, the repercussions of that day would ripple far beyond anything she could imagine. The universe was changing, and humanity's departure was only the beginning. The galaxy was never a harmonious place, but in the wake of humanity's departure from the Galactic Council, the fragile order that had held it together began to crumble. The absence of Earth's stabilizing influence left a void that no other species seemed capable of filling. Old rivalries flared anew, alliances dissolved, and entire star systems descended into chaos. For Dr. Ilara Voss, watching it all unfold from afar was both vindicating and deeply unsettling. The fallout. Back on Earth, the initial reaction to leaving the council was mixed. Some celebrated the decision as a bold step toward independence, while others feared the consequences of isolation. Trade routes once guaranteed by council treaties were abruptly severed, plunging colonies dependent on off-world supplies into crisis. Hyperlanes, the vast networks of subspace conduits used for interstellar travel, were increasingly restricted or patrolled by hostile factions seeking to assert dominance. Pirates exploited the growing instability, raiding vulnerable outposts and further straining an already fractured galaxy. Ilara spent her days monitoring reports from across human-controlled space, each one painting a bleaker picture than the last. The Quarren delegation, one of the few allies who had supported humanity during the vote, sent word that their homeworld was under siege by Zorathian forces. The Nixari, another ally, had withdrawn entirely from galactic affairs, retreating to their nebula-shrouded enclave. Even the neutral parties were beginning to take sides, drawn into conflicts they couldn't avoid. But what troubled Ilara most wasn't the political turmoil. It was the strange anomalies cropping up in regions formerly governed by the Council. Entire planets vanished without explanation, leaving behind only empty orbits. Space-time distortions rippled through sectors once considered stable, disrupting navigation and communication. Rumors spread of ghostly phenomena, ships encountering phantom fleets, stars flickering like dying embers, and whispers carried on cosmic winds that spoke of a great awakening. Captain Rinsolis joined Ilara in her quarters aboard the Eos, holding a data tablet filled with recent intel. "You got to see this," she said, her voice tinged with unease. She tapped the screen, projecting holographic images of devastated worlds and bizarre energy signatures. "These aren't random events. Something bigger is happening." Ilara studied the projections, her brow furrowing. "It's almost as if the universe itself is unraveling." Ryan nodded grimly. "Or rewriting its rules. And I think we know where this started." Ilara didn't need to ask what Rin meant. The timing was too coincidental. Ever since humanity's experiments with quantum energy and their subsequent expulsion from the Council, the galaxy had been spiraling out of control. What was it, cause and effect, or merely correlation? Either way, the implications weighed heavily on her conscience. A shadowy figure. As the anomalies intensified, rumors surfaced of a rogue scientist operating at the fringes of known space. His name was Cal Arden, the same Zorathian ambassador who had led the charge against humanity during the council hearing. Once a respected member of his people, Cal had disappeared shortly after the vote, vanishing into the lawless expanse beyond council borders. Ilara received fragmented transmissions claiming that Cal had uncovered forbidden knowledge about the origins of the universe, knowledge tied to the very fabric of reality. According to these reports, he believed humanity's actions had triggered something ancient and incomprehensible, the awakening of a primordial force known only as the Eternal Singularity. Determined to uncover the truth, Ilara assembled a small team to investigate. Joining her were Captain Solis, whose piloting skills were unmatched, Tarek Noor, a skeptical AI ethicist programmed to question every assumption, and a young xenolinguist named Mira Cade, whose expertise in deciphering alien languages proved invaluable. Together, they set course for the uncharted regions where Kale was rumored to be hiding. Their journey took them through treacherous territory. They encountered remnants of the shattered council, displaced refugees fleeing war-torn systems, scavengers picking over the ruins of abandoned colonies, and mercenaries eager to prey on anyone foolish enough to venture so far from safety. Along the way, they witnessed firsthand the devastating effects of the anomalies. Stars blinked out of existence before their eyes, replaced by yawning voids that defied understanding. Ships emerged from hyperspace only to find themselves trapped in endless loops, their crews driven mad by the repetition. Finally, after weeks of searching, they located Kale's base, a derelict orbital station orbiting a collapsed star. Its surface was pockmarked with scars from past battles, and its interior was a labyrinth of darkened corridors and malfunctioning systems. As they docked, Ilara felt a chill creep up her spine. This place radiated a sense of foreboding, as though it existed outside the normal flow of time. The truth revealed. Cal awaited them in the station's central chamber, surrounded by glowing arrays of alien technology. He looked older than when Ilara had last seen him, his sleek exosuit now tarnished and worn. Yet his piercing gaze remained unchanged, cutting through her defenses with unnerving clarity. "You shouldn't have come here," he said without preamble, his voice low and gravelly. "What you seek will change everything." "We didn't have a choice," Ilara replied, stepping forward. "The galaxy is falling apart, and we need answers. What do you know about the anomalies?" Kel gestured toward the monitors lining the walls, which displayed streams of complex data and swirling visualizations. "The anomalies are symptoms of something far greater. Long ago, the first civilizations discovered the eternal singularity, a being that exists at the heart of the universe. It is neither alive nor dead, neither good nor evil. It simply is." Mira leaned closer, her eyes wide with fascination. "And what does it do?" "It shapes reality," Kale explained. "Every moment, every event, every decision, it flows through the singularity. But it is not bound by our linear perception of time. To it, past, present, and future are one and the same." Ilara frowned. "If it's always existed, why are we only seeing its effects now?" "Because humanity woke it," Kale said bluntly. "Your experiments with quantum energy disturbed the delicate balance maintained by the Council. You thought you were advancing progress, but instead you unleashed forces you cannot control." Tarek chimed in, his mechanical voice calm but insistent. "That assumption requires evidence. How can we verify your claims?" Kale smirked, a hint of amusement flashing across his face. "I anticipated skepticism." He activated a hologram showing footage of the anomalies, collapsing stars, distorted spacetime, and eerie manifestations of light and shadow. "This is just the beginning. If left unchecked, the singularity will consume everything, forcing civilizations to confront their flaws or perish." Ilara's mind raced. Was this really happening? Had humanity inadvertently triggered the end of the galaxy as they knew it, or was Kale manipulating them for his own purposes? What do you want from us? She asked finally. Kel's expression softened, though his tone remained grave. I want you to understand the magnitude of what you've done. The singularity doesn't care about morality or justice. It thrives on change, feeding off the rise and fall of civilizations. By leaving the Council, humanity disrupted the status quo, accelerating the cycle. Now you must decide whether to embrace the chaos or try to stop it. Before Ilara could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. A swarm of unidentified ships had entered the system, their intentions unclear. Kale moved swiftly, activating defensive protocols while ushering the team toward an escape pod. This conversation isn't over, he said as they boarded. Find me again when you're ready to face the truth. With that, the pod launched into space, leaving the derelict station and Kale behind. As the U.S. retrieved them, Ilara stared out at the void, her thoughts swirling. Whatever lay ahead, one thing was certain. The galaxy would never be the same. The escape pod jettisoned from Kel Arden's derelict station just as the swarm of unidentified ships arrived, their sleek, predatory silhouettes cutting through the void like blades. Captain Rinsolis expertly maneuvered the EOS to intercept, her hands steady on the controls despite the tension crackling in the air. As the team boarded the flagship once more, they exchanged uneasy glances. Kale's cryptic warnings about the eternal singularity lingered heavily in their minds, but his final words before their hasty departure, "Find me again when you're ready to face the truth," left them with more questions than answers. Ilara Voss retreated to the ship's observation deck, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. Her thoughts churned with conflicting emotions, guilt over humanity's role in destabilizing the galaxy, fear of what the singularity might mean for the future, and a stubborn determination to uncover the truth. She replayed Kale's explanation in her mind, an ancient force that shaped reality itself, awakened by humanity's reckless experiments and exacerbated by their departure from the Galactic Council. If he was telling the truth, and she couldn't afford to dismiss him outright, the stakes were unimaginably high. But how could they possibly confront such a being? And what would it demand of them? The first trial. Back aboard the EOS, Tarek Noor analyzed the data Kale had provided during their brief encounter. A holographic projections revealed patterns within the anomalies, subtle shifts in energy signatures, gravitational fluctuations, and even temporal distortions. It wasn't random destruction. It was deliberate, almost surgical. The singularity wasn't merely consuming the galaxy. It was testing it. We're dealing with something beyond our comprehension, Tarek said, his voice calm yet tinged with urgency. Its actions suggest intelligence, or at least purpose. Whatever this entity is, it's not acting out of malice. It's evaluating. Evaluating what? Mira Kate asked, her young face etched with concern. Us? The galaxy? Everything. All of the above, Ilara replied, turning away from the viewport. Kale mentioned that civilizations are judged by their ability to adapt and evolve. Maybe these anomalies are trials, tests to see if we're worthy of coexisting with the singularity. Rin raised an eyebrow. Worthy? That sounds dangerously close to divine intervention. It's not divine, Ilara countered sharply. It's natural selection on a cosmic scale. Those who can't adapt will be left behind, or worse. Before they could debate further, the ship's sensors detected another anomaly nearby, a massive distortion in space-time, emanating from a dying star system. Against better judgment, they decided to investigate. As they approached, the distortion resolved into a shimmering portal, a swirling vortex of light and shadow that seemed to pulse with life. This feels like a trap, Rin muttered under her breath as the youths entered the portal. But there was no turning back now. On the other side, they found themselves in a surreal landscape unlike anything they'd ever encountered. They stood on a vast plain of crystalline structures that refracted light into dazzling colors, while the sky above shifted between infinite constellations and abstract shapes that defied logic. In the distance loomed a towering monolith inscribed with symbols from countless alien languages. Tarek scanned the environment, his processors humming with activity. This place exists outside conventional physics. Time and space are fluid here. We must tread carefully. As they approached the monolith, the ground trembled, and a booming voice echoed around them, not audible, but resonating directly in their minds. You have entered the domain of the eternal singularity. To proceed, you must prove your worth. Without warning, the crystalline plane transformed into a chaotic battlefield. Shadows materialized into humanoid figures wielding weapons forged from pure energy. Each member of the team faced their own personal adversary, manifestations of their deepest fears and insecurities. For Ilara, her opponent took the form of Ambassador Trenbach, the Zorathian elder who had condemned humanity before the council. His elongated head tilted mockingly as he spoke. You thought leaving the council would make you free. You've only proven your inadequacy. Ilara clenched her fists, refusing to let anger cloud her judgment. We didn't leave because we were weak. We left because we refused to bow to hypocrisy. Her words shattered the illusion, and the battlefield dissolved. One by one, the others overcame their trials. Rin faced a version of herself paralyzed by fear of failure. Mira confronted doubts about her linguistic abilities, and Tarek grappled with existential questions about his programming and purpose. When the last shadow faded, the monolith split open, revealing a glowing core pulsating with raw energy. From it emerged a fragment of the singularity itself, a swirling orb of light that hovered before them. It projected images into their minds, visions of humanity's history, from its earliest days of tribal warfare to its greatest achievements in science and art. These flashes alternated with scenes of devastation. Wars waged for resources, ecosystems destroyed by greed, and civilizations teetering on the brink of collapse. You are creators and destroyers, the singularity intoned, its voice reverberating through their consciousness. Your potential is limitless, yet so are your flaws. Prove to me that you deserve to wield the power I offer. A choice between paths. The team realized that escaping this trial wouldn't be enough. They needed to demonstrate humanity's capacity for growth. Drawing upon their collective strengths, they devised a solution. Using the ship's quantum core, Tarek created a feedback loop designed to stabilize the singularity's energy temporarily. Meanwhile, Mira translated the inscriptions on the monolith, discovering instructions for creating a harmonic resonance, a symbolic gesture meant to acknowledge the interconnectedness of all things. Ilara stepped forward, addressing the org directly. We're not perfect. We never claimed to be. But we're willing to learn, to change, and to take responsibility for our mistakes. That's what makes us human. The orb pulsed brighter, then dimmed, retreating back into the monolith. The landscape began to dissolve, and the team found themselves back aboard the Eos, shaken but alive. Reflections and resolve. Though they had survived the first trial, the experience left them deeply introspective. Ilara locked herself in her quarters, grappling with the weight of what they had seen. Humanity's journey wasn't just about proving themselves to the singularity. It was about reconciling their past with their potential for the future. Ryan joined her later, offering quiet support. You did good out there, Ilara. Not everyone gets a second chance. Ilara sighed, looking at the stars streaking past the viewport. But is it enough? The singularity isn't done testing us. And every step we take brings us closer to whatever comes next. Ryan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Then we'll keep moving forward, together. Little did they know, the next trial awaited them in the depths of uncharted space, a challenge that would test not just their courage, but their very humanity. The Eos sailed through the void, its crew battered but resolute. The first trial had left them shaken, not just physically, but emotionally and philosophically. Each member of the team carried the weight of what they had faced in the singularity's domain, their minds replaying fragments of the visions they had seen. Humanity's triumphs and failures haunted them, a stark reminder of the duality that defined their species. Yet there was no time to rest. The singularity's voice still echoed in their thoughts, urging them onward. Ilara Voss stood on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the swirling nebula ahead, a region known as the Veil of Eternity. According to Kel Arden's fragmented transmissions, this was where the next trial awaited. The nebula was a place of legend, whispered about in ancient texts from dozens of civilizations. It was said to be a nexus point where the boundaries between dimensions blurred, a realm where time flowed backward and forward simultaneously. To enter it was to risk losing oneself entirely, but turning back wasn't an option. The second trial, Shadows of the Past. As the Eos approached the veil, its sensors picked up strange readings, fluctuations in gravity, pockets of negative energy, and faint whispers that seemed to emanate from nowhere. Without warning, the ship was enveloped in a blinding flash of light, and when the crew regained their bearings, they found themselves adrift in a surreal reconstruction of Earth's history. They stood in the heart of an ancient forest, sunlight filtering through towering trees. The air smelled rich with life, untouched by pollution or industry. Around them, primitive humans gathered around a campfire, their faces illuminated by flickering flames. But as Ilara reached out to touch one of the figures, her hand passed through it like smoke. These were not living beings. They were echoes, memories made manifest. Before long, the peaceful scene dissolved into chaos. The forest burned, consumed by fire sparked by human hands. Cities rose from the ashes, sprawling metropolises that stretched toward the sky. But these too crumbled eventually, replaced by deserts scarred by war and environmental collapse. The cycle repeated endlessly, each iteration faster than the last, until the landscape became unrecognizable, a barren wasteland littered with the ruins of countless civilizations. "This is us," Mira whispered, tears streaming down her face. "We create, we destroy, and then we start over again." Tarek analyzed the phenomenon dispassionately. "It's a simulation, a projection of humanity's collective psyche. The singularity is forcing us to confront our flaws." "But why?" Rin asked, frustration creeping into her voice. "What does it want from us?" Ilara stepped forward, her expression grim yet determined. "It wants us to understand, to acknowledge the pain we've caused, not just to ourselves, but to others. Only then can we move forward." She turned to address the spectral figures surrounding them, speaking aloud for all to hear. "Yes, we've made mistakes. We've hurt this planet, exploited its resources, and waged wars that should never have been fought. But we've also dreamed, built, and healed. We're capable of change because we're willing to look at our past and say, 'Never again.'" Her words resonated through the simulation, causing the timeline to freeze. Slowly, the desolate wasteland began to transform. Green shoots pushed through cracked earth, rivers flowed once more, and the skies cleared. The vision faded, leaving the crew standing on the deck of the Eos, gasping for breath. "That felt real," Mira murmured, clutching her chest. "Like I lived through every moment." "It was," Tark replied, his tone unusually somber. "The singularity doesn't just show you things, it makes you experience them. This trial wasn't about proving strength or intelligence. It was about humility. The third trial, sacrifice." Their journey continued deeper into the veil, where reality itself seemed to unravel. Stars blinked in and out of existence, and the fabric of space-time twisted like molten glass. It was here that the third trial awaited, a test so harrowing that it nearly broke them. The Eos was suddenly beset by a swarm of mechanical drones, their design unfamiliar yet eerily advanced. They attacked without warning, overwhelming the ship's defenses and breaching its hull. Fire erupted in the engineering bay, and alarms blared throughout the vessel. Tarek rushed to contain the damage, his systems working overtime to reroute power and seal breaches. But the drones weren't the true threat. As the team scrambled to survive, a massive construct emerged from the chaos, a colossus forged from blackened metal and pulsating energy. Its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light as it locked onto the Eos. A single thought invaded their minds. To proceed, a sacrifice must be made. Ilara's stomach churned. She knew what this meant. The singularity demanded proof of their willingness to give up something precious for the greater good. "Tarek," she called out, realizing the AI ethicist's role in this trial. "You have to shut yourself down. Redirect your core processes to stabilize the ship." Tarek hesitated, his processors whirring audibly. "My programming prioritizes logical outcomes. If I deactivate, the probability of mission failure increases exponentially. And if you don't, we all die." Rin snapped, her voice cracking under the strain. "This isn't about logic anymore. It's about trust. Trust that we'll find another way." For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. Then Tarek nodded, his holographic avatar flickering slightly. "Very well. My purpose has always been to serve. If my sacrifice ensures your survival, then so be it." With those final words, Tarek initiated a cascade shutdown, diverting every ounce of his remaining energy to protect the Eos. The Colossus vanished as abruptly as it had appeared, leaving the crew stunned and grief-stricken. Mira collapsed to her knees, sobbing openly. "He saved us. He gave us a chance," Ilara said softly, her voice thick with emotion. "And now we owe it to him to see this through." The fourth trial, Unity. The final trial took place in a realm unlike any they had encountered before, a vast arena suspended in a starless void. Here, they faced representatives from various alien species whose worlds had been affected by the anomalies. Among them were Zorathians, Salithar, Quarren survivors, and even members of the Fractured Council. Each group accused humanity of being reckless, selfish, and destructive. "You unleashed this chaos upon us," shouted a Salithar ambassador, its crystalline form shimmering with anger. "Your hubris has doomed us all." Ilara stepped forward, raising her hands in a gesture of peace. "We won't deny our mistakes. What we did was wrong, and we're sorry. But blaming each other won't fix anything. The singularity isn't punishing us, it's challenging us to work together." Her plea fell on deaf ears at first, but slowly the assembled aliens began to listen. They shared stories of their own struggles, the losses they had endured, the sacrifices they had made. For the first time, humanity wasn't alone in bearing the burden of guilt and regret. Together, they devised a plan to stabilize the anomalies using a combination of human quantum technology, Salithar harmonic resonance, and Zorathian gravitational manipulation. When the arena dissolved, the crew found themselves back aboard the EOS, exhausted but united. They had proven that cooperation could overcome division, even in the face of existential threats. A glimmer of hope. As the EOS emerged from the veil of eternity, the crew reflected on the trials they had endured. Each one had tested a different aspect of humanity's character: humility, sacrifice, unity, and each victory had brought them closer to understanding the singularity's true nature. But Ilara knew the hardest decision lay ahead. The singularity had awakened because of humanity's actions, and now it was up to them to decide its fate. Would they harness its power to reshape the galaxy, risking the same hubris that had led to this crisis? Or would they let it fade into dormancy, trusting other species to forge their own path? For now, they pressed onward, guided by the lessons they had learned. Whatever choice they made, one thing was certain: the universe would never be the same. The EOS drifted silently through the void, its crew weary but resolute. Each member bore the scars of their journey, physical, emotional, and existential. But they were no longer the same people who had embarked on this mission. They carried with them the weight of humanity's past, the lessons of their trials, and the hope that their actions might shape a better future. Ilara Voss stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the swirling maelstrom ahead. The eternal singularity awaited them, a vast, shimmering vortex of light and shadow that defied comprehension. Its presence radiated an aura of raw power, both beautiful and terrifying. This was it, the culmination of everything they had endured. Confrontation with the infinite. As the EOS approached the singularity, time itself seemed to slow. The ship's systems flickered erratically, unable to cope with the distortions in space-time. The crew gathered on the observation deck, their faces illuminated by the pulsating glow outside. No one spoke. Words felt inadequate in the face of what lay before them. Finally, Ilara broke the silence. "This is where we decide the fate of the galaxy, and maybe the universe itself." Captain Rin Sulla stepped forward, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "Whatever happens next, we're ready. We've faced our fears, made sacrifices, and proven that we can unite even when the odds are against us." Miracade nodded, clutching a small data tablet containing the translation she had painstakingly deciphered during their journey. "We've learned so much about the singularity, and about ourselves. Now it's up to us to choose wisely." Tariq Moore's absence weighed heavily on them all. Though his sacrifice had been instrumental in their survival, his absence left a void that none could fill. Yet his final message echoed in their minds: evolution demands sacrifice. With a deep breath, Ilara addressed the entity directly, her voice carrying across the void. "Eternal singularity, we stand before you not as conquerors or supplicants, but as humble stewards of a fragile existence. We have faced your trials, confronted our flaws, and emerged stronger, not because we sought power, but because we sought understanding." The singularity responded, its voice resonating not just in their ears, but in their very souls. It was neither kind nor cruel, merely infinite. "You have passed my tests. You have demonstrated resilience, creativity, compassion, and humility. Few civilizations reach such heights. Fewer still survive the journey." Ilara swallowed hard, her heart pounding. "Then tell me, is this the end? Will you consume us, reshape us, or leave us to find our own way?" The singularity pulsed brighter, its form shifting into countless images. Stars forming and dying, planets teeming with life, and civilizations rising and falling. "I am neither savior nor destroyer. I am change incarnate, the force that drives all things forward. Your awakening has accelerated the cycle, forcing others to confront truths they would rather ignore. Whether this leads to harmony or chaos depends on you. Ilara closed her eyes, letting the enormity of the moment wash over her. Humanity now held the power to wield the singularity's energy, to stabilize the anomalies, restore order to the galaxy, and perhaps even ascend to a new level of existence. But such power came at a cost. To harness it would mean taking responsibility for forces beyond mortal comprehension. To let it fade would mean trusting other species to navigate the challenges ahead without guidance. She turned to her crew, meeting each of their gazes in turn. What do you think? Should we take control or step aside? Rin crossed her arms, her expression thoughtful. If we use its power, we risk becoming what we fought against, rulers imposing our will on others. Is that really the legacy we want to leave behind? Mira hesitated, then spoke softly. Maybe the best thing we can do is trust others to grow. We've shown that cooperation works. Maybe that's enough. Ilara nodded slowly, her decision crystallizing. She faced the singularity once more, her voice unwavering. We won't use your power to dominate or dictate. Instead, we'll share what we've learned, with humility and respect. Let the galaxy find its own path. Change isn't something to fear. It's something to embrace. The singularity dimmed slightly, its light softening. Your wisdom honors the cycle. For now, I shall recede, allowing the universe to evolve naturally. Remember, change is eternal. Embrace it or be consumed. With those final words, the vortex began to shrink, its brilliance fading into the darkness. As it disappeared, the anomaly ceased, and the galaxy fell silent once more. The rifts in space-time sealed themselves, and the distorted stars returned to their rightful places. A fragile coalition. Back aboard the Eos, the crew allowed themselves a moment of quiet reflection. The immediate crisis had passed, but the road ahead remained uncertain. Humanity's departure from the Galactic Council had fractured the galaxy, but their actions since then had sparked tentative alliances among former enemies. Ilara transmitted a message to every corner of known space, inviting representatives from all species to convene at a neutral location. It wasn't a call for domination or leadership. It was an invitation to rebuild together. Some accepted cautiously, others hesitantly, but many saw it as a chance to forge a new beginning. The first meeting took place aboard a derelict space station orbiting a dying star, a symbol of renewal amidst decay. Delegations arrived from across the galaxy, including Zorathians, Salithar, Quarren survivors, and even remnants of the old council. Tensions ran high, but under Ilara's guidance, they began to talk, not as adversaries, but as equals. Cal Ardeen appeared unexpectedly, his sleek exosuit gleaming faintly in the dim light. He approached Ilara privately, his expression unreadable. You chose wisely, he said simply. Not everyone would have had the courage to walk away from such power. Ilara met his gaze evenly. Power isn't worth anything if it costs your soul. Besides, the galaxy doesn't need another ruler, it needs partners. Kale inclined his head slightly, a rare smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Perhaps there's hope for humanity after all. A new beginning. In the months that followed, humanity reestablished itself as a galactic player, not as a dominant force, but as a collaborator. Trade routes reopened, refugee crises eased, and scientific advancements flourished thanks to shared knowledge. The scars of the past lingered, but so did the promise of a brighter future. Ilara watched from the observation deck of the Eos as Earth grew larger in the viewport. The planet was healing, its ecosystems recovering thanks to renewed efforts at sustainability. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because humanity had finally embraced its role in the cosmos. As the ship descended toward Earth's atmosphere, she glanced at the stars one last time. Somewhere out there, the singularity slumbered, waiting for the next chapter in the endless cycle of change. And somewhere closer, Tarek Noor's memory lived on, a reminder that evolution demanded sacrifice, but also hope. The day humanity departed the Galactic Council had indeed changed the universe forever. But perhaps Ilara thought that change had been necessary. After all, progress often required stepping into the unknown, and sometimes the greatest leaps came from letting go.